My name is Andy Tucker. I'm joining you from Basingstoke in North Hampshire this evening, about 20 miles north of the Naturetrek office, which is in Jane Austen's village of Chawton. This is the latest in a series of online webinars we're doing this winter. It's a real pleasure to be with you. People joining us from around the world tonight, of course, mainly from the United Kingdom, but dotted around the world as well. If you are overseas, well, it's a cold, dank winter's evening here in Great Britain at the moment. 0 degrees, frost forming outside, and with half the country under floodwater after 2 months of torrential rain. So to be quite honest, I'm looking forward to the tonic of going over to tropical South America this evening for 4 talks given by my colleagues. We've got Rob Smith joining us live from Bogota, the capital of Colombia, this evening. He'll be kicking off with a talk on our birding tour in Colombia. After that, my colleague from the Naturetrek office who works in the tailor-made department, George Vincent, he'll be speaking about Suriname, one of the countries well off the beaten tourist track. I'm really looking forward myself to learning more about that country. After a 10-minute break at 8:15 to 8:25, Jose Antonio Padilla, an old friend of mine, we led together in our early 20s in southeast Peru. We've kept in touch ever since. Jose Antonio is a regular with Naturetrek groups in Peru and Bolivia, and he'll be talking to us about Bolivia, a lowlands and highlands tour after the interval this evening. And then finishing off the evening, my old stalwart colleague from the office, Paul Stanbury, that many of you know, he'll be finishing off the evening with a talk on Argentina later on. Now, from my perspective, the year's kicked off unbelievably busily in the Naturetrek office. Thank you, those of you that are booking holidays with us. Looking back to the pandemic, we did a lot of online roadshows and virtual tours back then, and from my perspective, we gave quite a lot of exposure to the Ecuadors, the Perus, and the Galapagos of this world. And coming back for more online roadshows this current winter, we were thinking, well, what new can we offer? We don't just want to cover the same old content. So it's a delight tonight to be shining a spotlight on some of South America's more off the beaten track destinations, which we haven't really covered in previous webinars. So I'm really looking forward to what the guys come up with this evening. As usual, there's a live chat function in the bottom of your Zoom screen there. Do drop us a comment. Let us know where you're joining online this evening. And of course, as the evening progresses, you can pop any questions in the online chat there or use the questions tool in Zoom. And the speakers will be pleased to cover some questions in about 25 minutes we have spare at the end of the evening before we wrap up proceedings at about 9:30. So once again, thank you very much for joining us. We'll get straight underway and I'll zoom over to Rob over there in Bogota. Evening, Rob.
Good evening, Andy. Many thanks. Right, so I'm going to give you a whistle-stop tour of the Multicoloured Tanager tour. And we are, the tour itself is focused on this area in Colombia. The Andean range in the south of Colombia splits into 3 ranges: the Western Andes, the Central Andes, and Colombia's Eastern Andes. And this particular tour is focused on the Central and Western Andes of Colombia. So we kick off with a direct flight from London Heathrow into Bogota, and we connect on to a city called Pereira, which is in Colombia's Central Andes, perched at around 1,500 meters. We'll no doubt grab a coffee, and then we're going to get straight into the birding. We're going to be birding a wonderful reserve called Otonquimbaya, which is on the outskirts, well, about half an hour outside of Pereira. And there's a wonderful track covered on either side by luxuriant cloud forest. And we're going to start by looking for some kind of classic Andean sort of species like this torrent duck, and we'll hopefully get into some of the early endemic targets, including the likes of this caucaguan, a bird that's very rare, but here in Otonquimbaya it occurs in good numbers, so we have a really good chance of seeing this stunning bird. Another key target of the reserve is red ruff fruit crow, a large cotinga, and we stand really good chances of this bird in our first few days of the tour. So having got into the birding in Otun, we're going to reposition north to Manizales, where we're going to spend a couple of nights in a hotel which fringes lovely cloud forest habitat. And we can start enjoying species like Andean motmot and masked trogon just in the grounds of the hotel itself. And then the following day, we're gonna head over to a reserve called Rio Blanco, which is about 40-minute drive from the hotel. It's a real classic, a classic reserve and a classic day's birding here in Colombia. There's lovely hummingbird gardens around the Lodge HQ, where we can see the likes of long-tailed sylph. Throughout the tour, the hummingbird diversity is kind of really incredible. We can hope for as many as perhaps 40 species throughout the tour, a few of which I've highlighted later on in the presentation. But Rio Blanco is really one of the real kind of highlights of birding this reserve is the chance to see a number of antpitter species. Antpitters are a family of birds that are very furtive. They live on the forest floor and they're generally really difficult to see. But as you can see here in this slide, there's a chap here, one of the reserve wardens. These guys are kind of like antpitter whisperers, and with gentle whistles and the promise of an earthworm or two, they coax antpitters out of their kind of forest layers. And we can see as many as 4 species when we're here in Rio Blanco, including the spectacular chestnut-crowned antpitter. There's also the endemic brown-banded antpitter, bicolored antpitter, and slate-crowned antpitter. So this is one of the real highlights of birding here in Rio Blanco is these antpitter species. We'll also be hoping to get into mixed species flocks across the cloud forest trails of the reserve. And they often include the likes of crimson-mantled woodpecker and pearl tree runner. And if we're lucky, we may come across white-capped tanager throughout our day's birding here in Rio Blanco. There's great views from the reserve. This is a picture looking back down to the city of Manizales. And so that's Rio Blanco. It's, as I say, it's a real classic of Colombian birding. We've made a number of changes to the tour recently, and one of those changes is the inclusion of a new reserve called Hacienda El Bosque, which is some 20 minutes away from our hotel. And we spend a full morning there. It's a working cattle ranch, cattle farm, dairy farm. And the owner's son has taken it upon himself to protect cloud forest in the reserve. And he started sort of offering the chance to go and visit. They have a number of fruit feeders which attract the likes of these hooded mountain tanagers. And sword-billed hummingbird is really common in the reserve as well. Another real classic hummingbird of the Andes. Again, we have the chance of a couple of species of antpitter, perhaps the real prize being this crescent-faced antpitter, a bird that's really, really tough to see, perhaps with the only exception of Hacienda El Bosque. So we'll keep our fingers crossed that we can find this bird on our morning's birding here. The fruit feeders also attract the spectacular grey-breasted mountain toucan. And yeah, I think it's a great inclusion in the tour. From there, we're going to reposition after 2 nights spent just outside Manizales. We're going to reposition and move upslope into the higher reaches of the central Andes into the Parque Nacional Natural Los Nevados, which is a national park named after this spectacular volcano, which is at the center of the park. It's a really incredible place to bird. We're going to spend a full afternoon and the following full morning and perhaps a little extra time after lunch birding in this region. So we bird a number of different habitats, high cloud forest and elfin forest, and right into the heart of the reserve will be up in this special habitat known as Paramo, which is a neotropical savanna which occurs above the tree line. We're anywhere above around 3,500 meters here, but thanks to Colombia's proximity to the equator, we're not in the snow. And we'll get into some really spectacular birds up in these high altitude regions, including scarlet-bellied mountain tanager, many-struck canastero, And if we're lucky, we might have a flyby of Andean condor. And then there's more endemic targets whilst we're up in these high altitude regions, including the diminutive and quite tricky actually rufous-runted parakeet, as well as perhaps the prized target here, another hummingbird which only occurs above around 3,600 meters. This is the wonderful and charismatic Buffy helmet crest. So we'll be hoping to get good views of this spectacular little hummer. Our night here is spent in a great hotel called Termales de Ruiz. As you can see, there's a pool out to the left of the hotel in shot here, and there's actually a couple more out of shot to the right. These pools they're fed by geothermal, naturally occurring geothermal hot springs. So after a full day's birding, you can take a glass of wine or a beer and sit in these pools and just kind of luxuriate in these wonderful surroundings. In the foreground here, you can see shrubs, and this is the edge of a hummingbird garden that overlooks the hotel. And we can find species like rainbow-bearded thornbill, mountain velvet-breast, and several other wonderful hummers up in these high altitude zones. So that's kind of the start or the first half of the tour we spend in Colombia's central Andes. And then the second half of the tour, we're going to cross over from the central Andes, cross over the Cauca Valley and the Cauca River into the western Andes. Here we're going to be based for 3 nights in the wonderful Montezuma Rainforest Lodge. This was another change that Andy and I made to the tour. We've added a third night here, and for me, this is perhaps the best birding location in Colombia for the first-time visitor. Colombia, as I'm sure many of you know, Colombia has more species of birds or recorded species of birds than any other country in the world, and the lodge list here, which includes the road that runs into the national park, the adjacent park, is upwards of 600 species. So it's mind-bogglingly biodiverse. This is one of the most biodiverse regions in the world. And we're going to spend 3 nights birding in this incredible location. So the national park that we bird is called Tatamá. And it's a spectacular location. We bird in 4x4 vehicles. So we leave the lodge very early in the morning and we head up into the mountains. So the first full day, we go right up to the top, up here, more spectacular views. And we'll get right into some special endemic species up here, including chestnut-breasted flower piercer, and there's the likes of Munchiki wood wren up here as well. So we across the course of our 3 nights, we're going to bird this long road, which covers an altitudinal gradient of around 1,000 meters. So over the course of our stay, we'll hit all those different altitudinal zones, which have their own specific species at each point. So as we come down, we'll come into the likes of purplish mantled tanager, and one of the most spectacular hummingbirds, I think, velvet purple coronet. Moving down, the targets really come thick and fast. There's no real let up. We have the likes of orange-breasted fruit eater. There's a chance for black solitaire, a tough target, but nevertheless we have a good chance of seeing this magnificent Choco special. There's wonderful plant life as we go down, particularly represented by spectacular orchids. The orchid diversity here is really off the charts. And yeah, it's just a spectacular place to bird. We will have had a picnic breakfast up at the top, and then halfway through the day, we'll make a stop and have a picnic lunch delivered to us along the trail. So we'll sit and have a picnic lunch. This is Andy back in the day on his tour here, when he originally set up the tour, I think back in 2016, if I'm not mistaken. And no doubt there'll be a spectacular view adjoining our picnic lunch spot. There's a couple of really special tanagers here in the reserve, both belonging to the genus Banksia. This is black and gold tanager, and perhaps the most emblematic bird of the reserve. This is gold ring tanager. So we stand great chances of seeing both these species. They're actually pretty straightforward, to be honest. Over the time that we have in the reserve, we'll almost certainly get those species. Back at the lodge, there's spectacular hummingbird gardens. There's somewhere in the region of 15, 16 species of hummingbirds alone in the garden. So photographers will be in their element. It's a great place just to spend a little bit of time. And we get the likes of rufous-gaped hillstar. And if we're lucky, we might get a visit from a tyra. This is in the species, in the family of mustelids. They're often trying to take fruit from the fruit feeders. Right, so that takes us to the last couple of nights of the tour. So from Montezuma, we're going to head south. We're still in Colombia's Western Andes. We're going to spend the last couple of days in a lodge called Araucana, which lies to the west of Cali, which is one of the largest cities in Colombia. And this location gives us further access to Colombia, to the Pacific slope of the Western Andes, and this incredibly biodiverse region. So it's a great spot to finish off. It's the most well-appointed lodge on the tour. Within the gardens, we can see common species like crimson rump toucanet, saffron crown tanager, and there's a few special near endemics like bar-crested antshrike and spectacled parrotlet. And then over the time that we spend here, we'll visit a number of reserves close to the lodge, which attract more spectacular species like these rufous-throated tanagers and silvery-throated tanagers. So yeah, it's just a real kind of an explosion of color in these Western Andes, and it's a great way to round off the tour. There's more like emblematic species like toucan barbet and golden-headed quetzal. And if we're really lucky, we might even run into ornate hawk eagle. There's a couple of breeding pairs in the region. And then, yeah, finally we come to the bird in question itself, the multicolored tanager, after which the tour is named. Yeah, one of the most spectacular birds of the region, and an endemic to Colombia, and perhaps one of the most sought after endemics of the whole country. Thankfully, it's pretty straightforward. We bird in a spot called Kilometer 18, and in particular a reserve called La Florida. We spend the whole day in the area, and to date, every tour has seen this bird, and they're pretty straightforward. I think we couldn't name the tour after multicolored tanager if we dipped on this species. So it's a great way to finish up the tour. And just to end, I'm going to give a few bonus slides. A lot of people who come over, they like to combine tours. So we have the multicolored tanager tour and also Santa Marta endemics. And as the name suggests, it's a tour full of endemic species, which can be combined with that multicolored tanager tour. It's up in Colombia's northern Caribbean region. We do shorebirding and bird dry scrub habitat for the likes of vermilion cardinal. And then we get into the Santa Marta Mountains themselves for Santa Marta woodstar. These are all endemic species coming up pretty much. Black cheek mountain tanager, recently changed its name from Santa Marta mountain tanager. The regionally endemic white-tipped quetzal, white-tailed star frontlet, and the endemic targets just keep coming thick and fast. This is Santa Marta screech owl, a rare owl that we can hopefully find. It was only described in, I think, 2015. So yeah, that's for those that want to make the most of the long journey over to Colombia. You have the chance to combine these two tours. But if you're only going for one and you've never visited Colombia before, then the multicolored Tanager tour is a great option, and I hope to see you over here in Colombia birding soon. I hope you enjoyed all the slides. I shall, if I can, hand over to George now.
Thanks,
Hey,
Rob.
George, can you hear me?
Yeah, all good.
Sorry for
Thank
those
you.
technical issues.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, I'll set up here and hopefully everyone can see my screen. Okay, yeah, that's great. Thanks very much, Rob. So yeah, for those that don't know me, my name's George, and I work in the TaylorMade team with Georgie Dodds, my colleague. I'm now heading up the operations across Southeast Asia and also parts of South America, including Suriname. Now, Suriname is a country I visited at the back end of last year. And yeah, I enjoyed it so much. I actually went on holiday, but I decided, do you know what? I really want to talk about kind of a mix of what I found, but also, you know, the potential for Naturetrek clients to get out there too. So I've tried to use kind of as many photos as possible from my trip to kind of give some extra perspective on you know, first-hand perspective on what you could see. So currently, you know, I'm kind of working on launching a group tour. It's kind of in the process. If that's of interest to anyone, I'd love to hear from you. But right now it's kind of available for TaylorMade travel. So just bear that in mind as sort of we move through the slides. But yeah, I'm going to try and go through quite a lot here, so do bear with me. So, I mean, the first question I often get asked is, where on earth is Suriname? Now, no, you know, bit of a giveaway from the kind of talk theme tonight. It's South America. It's over here on the northeast coast of South America. So it's actually right here, sandwiched in between French Guiana and Guyana, just above Brazil. And this is what we call the Guiana Shield Biodiversity Hotspot. So Suriname itself is actually an ex-Dutch colony. So it's actually primary language is Dutch, unlike much of the rest of South America. So it's not Portuguese or Spanish, as you might expect. But it's a real blend of culture, and it actually has a real Caribbean feel to it, quite different from some of the surrounding countries, and also quite significant input from Indonesia as well. So actually, you know, there's quite a lot of Javan cuisine as well. So it's a really fun and interesting place to be in general. The population size is only around 600,000 people. So to put that in context, that's roughly less than half the size of Hampshire, where we are in the UK. And all of those people are concentrated on the coast, leaving much of that interior completely untouched. And if we flip over to the satellite view, you can see just how much forest cover actually remains. In fact, 93% of Suriname is covered in forest, which gives it the highest percentage forest cover of any country on earth. And, you know, because of that, you get plentiful wildlife outside of protected areas, which for me makes car journeys and transfers all the more interesting, because you can't switch off. You just never know what's going to turn up. So it is part of the wider Amazon rainforest, but it's not connected to the Amazon River basin itself. So it's a really unique hub of biodiversity. I actually just want to start focusing on this area to the south of Paramaribo, the capital. This is just where I started my tour. It's called the Brokopondo Reservoir, which covers quite a significant proportion of the total land area of Suriname, around 1% of the country, which is, yeah, it's quite significant. And, you know, it came about from the construction of the Afro-Baka Dam in 1959, which actually supplies hydroelectric power to most of Paramaribo now. But in the meantime, it's obviously flooded this huge area of forest. And now you get this sort of relic flooded forest with these ancient bare tree stumps sticking out of the lake, which is makes really great scouting posts and nesting holes for things like toucans, parakeets, kingfishers, raptors. So it's a really interesting area to start birding. But actually, one of the major reasons for visiting this area in particular is to find this little guy, who's an endemic subspecies called the purple harlequin toad. Now, previously, this species was only known to a tiny isolated mountaintop in the interior, but it's recently been found in some of the creeks on this lake. And it makes a really nice trip to go and see these guys and photograph them. Really attractive amphibians. And in general, the area is very good for amphibians. So we ran into this smoky jungle frog as well. And yeah, it's worth mentioning that Suriname in general is a sort of herpetologist paradise. I mean, we encountered 52 species in around 8.5 days in the dry season, which is the off season. And my guide informs me that if you come in the wet season, you can double that. So, I mean, if you're into that, it's an amazing place. So we also found things like smooth-fronted caiman, which is one of the 4 species here. It's actually a dwarf caiman. And then the surrounding area is really nice, open country birding. It's not quite as dense forest. So you get things like yellow and red rump caciques, but also a host of flycatchers, cuckoos, ant shrikes, that kind of thing. So that's really nice as well. And then just to the sort of northwest corner of the Brokopondo Reservoir, you've got this forested mountaintop called Brownsburg. Now, I don't want to spend too much time on Brownsburg simply because, to be completely honest, it's not the easiest place to access and the accommodation is incredibly basic. But as you can see, and this was the view from the balcony, it's an absolutely stunning location and packed full of wildlife. So if you're okay roughing it for a few nights, and if that's really what you want to do, more on a tailor-made basis, then absolutely give it a go. I mean, one of the major reasons for birders in particular to come here is to see grey-winged trumpeter, and it is probably the best place in the world to see this species alongside some others, but this is really the key draw for this location. Me personally, I'm more of a mammal man, and one of the reasons I came here is because all 8 of Suriname's primate species are resident, including this white-faced saki. So yeah, that was kind of my draw too, and we had some really great success with the primate species here. Nocturnal spotlighting is also really productive. We had multiple 9-banded armadillos. In one evening, we had 3 sightings of lowland paca. And if anyone's ever spotlighted in the Amazon before, you know that's not an easy species to see at all. So we were very lucky there. But also multiple species of opossum, kinkajou, tyra. We even had a tapir up on the mountain. And you've also got an outside chance for some of the cat species as well. Like much of Suriname, this area is fantastic for raptors. So you've got soaring raptors like swallowtail kites, but also forest-dwelling raptors like white hawk and a couple of the forest falcons too. The owling is also very good after dark. So here in particular, spectacled owl and foothill screech owl, particular specialities. And as I say, it's another really good spot for herps, particularly snakes. We found this quite wonderful Chironius multiventris. But it's also a very good place to find Amazon palm pit viper, which is quite a key target for some herpers. If we zoom back out and head a bit southwest, there's an area of forest here called Fredberg. Now, Fredberg is, I would say, probably the top birding hotspot in Suriname, in terms of outright birding. I mean, bearing in mind that Suriname is a predominantly forested habitat, it's possible to clock sort of upwards of 350 species in around 2 weeks, which is pretty staggering for this kind of habitat. One of the key reasons for visiting Fredberg in particular is to find the Guyanan cock of the rock, which is obviously quite a special bird in this area. There are 4 active leks currently in this area alone. We managed to find this guy, unfortunately, was a bit hiding because we arrived a little bit late in the day. But there, if you had more time, they are out and about and some really good opportunities for photography. But the habitat in general is just absolutely fantastic. You see on the right-hand side here, these sort of old jungle roads go on for miles and miles and miles, and you're pretty much the only people there. And in the tall trees, it's not unusual to see 5 or 6 different species of woodpecker, plus cotingas, tanagers, fruit crows. It's particularly good for the Guyanan red cotinga and the crimson fruit crow, but also there's plenty more colorful widespread species like a paradise tanager, purple-breasted cotinga, etc. It's also a very good place to find capuchin bird. If anyone's ever heard capuchin bird, it's a very bizarre sounding thing. It sounds like a distant chainsaw. And the elusive zigzag heron is another speciality here, which is typically pretty difficult to find, but it's pretty reliable here. Always a chance for a flyby from some macaws. We had some really nice sightings of red and green macaws while we were here. And just in general, a big diversity of parrots and parakeets. So you've got blue-headed, mealy, orange-winged parrots, also painted parakeets. And as Rob was mentioning earlier, also ornate hawk eagle. We did have a flyby. Unfortunately, this one is not my photo. It was just a flyby. But there's also chances for both harpy eagle and crested eagle here. And rather guttingly, there was a harpy eagle while we were here, and we narrowly missed it. But yeah, you just never know when it's going to turn up. So that's a really exciting thing as well. Around the camp itself, the birding's very, very good. You've got honey creepers, ant wrens, crimson topaz, lots of lovely mixed flocks. It is worth mentioning again that the Fredberg accommodation is pretty basic. It's a lot less basic than Brownsburg, but still, you do need to accept that it's going to be basic if you'd like to visit here. But yeah, so it's also a very good spot for primates. Again, all of the 8 species are present here. We managed to see Guianan red howler monkey every day, actually. You can see these guys by the side of the road. Just worth keeping an eye out on the road journeys, but also this is a very good spot for red-faced spider monkey or Guianan spider monkey. It's the Guianan shield endemic. Another Guianan shield endemic is the golden-handed or mid-ass tamarin. Very, very pretty monkey. And again, great spotlighting opportunities after dark. We found this fantastic emerald tree boa, which is a real target for herpers, as well as the red-tailed boa constrictor, which is a sort of color morph that seems to only be present in Suriname. So to the west of Suriname, you've kind of got the jewel in the crown. This is an area called Cabo Lebo. And I just wanted to use the satellite imagery here to just demonstrate how remote this place is. I mean, it's only accessible by light aircraft, and I think the nearest road is around 130 kilometers away. And that flight itself is absolutely spectacular. You're flying over unbroken jungle for miles to this airstrip. And yeah, so it's just a very special place. It's also never been inhabited by local indigenous people, so the wildlife has not been hunted, and therefore it's not very afraid of humans. So we can take boat trips down the river, but we also do walks into the jungle. There's even sports fishing if people are interested in that as well, for some really nice big species. But yeah, the amount of wildlife here combined with their sort of lack of human fear makes it a top destination for some of the Amazon's more elusive, large iconic mammals like Brazilian tapir, and even jaguar. This photo was taken in Cabo Lebo. If anyone's tried to look for jaguar in the Amazon, you'll know it's incredibly difficult. They are very, very elusive anywhere outside the Pantanal, really, or Pantanal-esque habitat. But they do occasionally turn up here. So do puma. They are occasionally sighted crossing the airstrip, and ocelots as well sometimes come to the back of the lodge to take scraps. So, it's important to note this is still a dense rainforest. It's not a zoo. Sightings are not going to be frequent, and they're certainly not guaranteed. But this is sort of wild Amazon rainforest, as it has been for thousands of years, which to me just kind of surpasses any guarantees, because I just find it very exciting to know that you're in a completely untouched habitat, and this is how it's been forever. So that's a really cool thing. Some of the more common terrestrial diurnal mammals include red-rumped agouti. Also, you've got South American huati, some teira, other things like that. And again, this is a top spot for harpy eagle and crested eagle. They do turn up every now and then. It's a really nice indicator of a pristine rainforest. There are no sort of canopy viewing towers like there are in the Brazilian Amazon, for instance. But if there is one in the area, which there is quite often, they'll keep a tab. Local guides will keep tabs on it. It's also good for Guianan endemics like Guianan toucanet, and also Morail guan, red-throated caracara. And if you're not going to go to Brownsburg, you've also got a fairly good chance for grey-winged trumpeter here too. Macaws are quite common. There's in fact 5 species present here. And then cruising down the river is always a good place to see some water birds. It's important to note that this is pristine habitat. So theoretically, any of the Amazons, Surinamese Amazons wildlife is possible here, including things like giant river otter and such. Zooming out and heading a little bit north of Cabo Lebo is an area called Marataca. This is, again, a rarely visited area of Suriname. It's a remote tributary. And it's kind of the perfect combination of remote, but it is accessible. It's more accessible. It's accessible by road as opposed to flight, but very rarely visited. So if you're out on the river, you're likely to be the only boat, bar maybe a couple of local fishermen. So it's very, very quiet. And it's a great place to find giant river otter and West Indian manatee too, both of which, with a couple of nights, you've got a very good chance of. We were lucky enough to have 5 sightings of manatee and a family of otters within our first hour on the river. Not saying that will happen if you were to go, but it just gives an example of how special this place is. There's also 3 species of primate which are quite regularly seen. You've got the Guianan squirrel monkey, the red howler, and the Guianan brown capuchin, but all 8 species of primate are possible here as well. Also, the best location in the country for Toko toucan, the largest of the toucan species, but all 6 of Suriname's toucans and toucanets are present, and we actually managed to see 5 of them in the morning. So yeah, it's a cool spot for those 2. And again, really good for parrots. Red fan parrot was probably my favorite. And there's also some Marish palms where the blue and yellow macaws nest right by the river in the village near where we stay to access the river. Also very good for canopy birds like bare-necked fruit crow. And also because it's a quieter river, you've got chances for shy species like sungrebe, boat-billed heron, sun-mitten perhaps. So yeah, it's a nice place for those as well. Green anacondas are quite regular, especially in the mating season. You can get some really, really big ones if that's your thing. And this area combines really well with a coastal area near the town of Paradise, which I think is a fantastic name for a village. It's called Biggie Pan, which literally translates to big lake. And this is a huge wetland area with mangrove channels and creeks. And it's home to more than 100 species of bird, but most famous for its large congregations of scarlet ibis, which is really, really, really impressive to see in the numbers they're present in. We can stay at a really nice lodge here. This is a sort of four-star lodge right out on the lake, and take boat trips out, at nighttime and sunrise, sunset during the day, whenever we want, really. So there's American flamingo here, roseate spoonbill, some other impressive species like that. But then you've also got a host of waders, a bunch of sandpipers, plovers, Dulwichers and things like that to sort through. And then also the cruisers, as I like to call them. You've got brown pelicans, black skimmers, frigate birds as well. A sort of whole host of herons and egrets. And then, yeah, in terms of photography opportunities, going out at sunrise and sunset is pretty special. It's a particularly magical sight at kind of that time of day. And then in these quieter back channels, you never really know what's going to turn up. So we were lucky to run into this roosting great horned owl, which was a really nice find. And yeah, as I say, once again, raptors are pretty much ever present. So you've got the 3 species of hawk, which are fairly regularly seen here, as well as osprey. And this one in the middle, the rufous crab hawk, is a bit of a speciality in the Guianas over this side. And yeah, so I mean, on the way to Biggie Pan itself, we can stop off and do some roadside birding. Quite a few locations, but one of the places we can stop is at a red-bellied macaw roost, and just we'll see if they're in. It's one of the many places we can stop. But as I say, I mean, there's plenty of great wildlife hotspots within striking distance of the capital. You really don't need to go that far. So there's a place here called Pepperpot Nature Park, which is a really delightful segment of rainforest right on the outskirts of the city. And we've got a really nice lodge there called Zootopia. And we can basically base ourselves here for a couple of nights and just do day trips out. As I say, there is so much wildlife so close to the capital, you really don't even need to go that far. So it's nice to have a few days relaxing, either at the beginning, middle, and end of the tour. So as I say, I was blown away by the density of wildlife so close to the capital city. It really was pretty impressive. So you've got large mixed troops of monkeys. You've got Gowan and squirrel monkeys and brown capuchins in huge numbers during the daytime. You've also got an outside chance for things like golden-handed tamarin and perhaps white-faced saki. It's also very, very good for sloths. Actually, you can see sloths all over Suriname. There's both pale-throated 3-toed sloth and Hoffman's 2-toed sloth. But we actually managed to see 6 of these pale-throated 3-toed sloths in one evening, which was just great. And another animal that I'd not seen in any of my previous trips to the neotropics was Brazilian porcupine. And we were picking up kind of 3 or 4 individuals in a night. Again, just the density close to the capital city was pretty astonishing. The giveaway for these guys is they have quite a hot, sweaty smell. So it's not necessarily your tour leader. It could be a porcupine. So if they try and tell you that, they're not necessarily lying. So there's also plenty of opossum species that we managed to pick up. You've got common opossum and brown-eyed four opossum and things like that. And then just because, as much of Suriname goes, you just don't know what's going to turn up. So they do occasionally get giant anteater, jaguarundi, ocelot, water opossum on occasion. And we actually had a capybara, which was a new record in the park. So yeah, that was really, really special as well. By day, it's a pretty famous birding hotspot, particularly just because of how accessible it is. So, I mean, common birds like these tanagers can be seen pretty much all over the country, but it's very good for some of the more restricted range species like blood-coloured woodpecker and arrowhead piculet, which is actually the only endemic to Suriname. And also, some stunning birds like crimson-hooded manakin are relatively easy to find sort of in this area and in surrounding areas as well. So there's plenty to explore. And if you're very lucky, there's even a few records of agami heron in this park, which kind of, I think, goes quite a long way to show how pristine it still is, considering how reclusive this bird usually is. As I've said once, say it once again, that the herping is very, very good. You've got snakes and lizards, and you've also got the Suriname toad, which is quite a funny looking thing. And then, not too far from Paramaribo, closer to the international airport, which is about an hour away, you've got a nice savanna forest mosaic, which is a little bit different and nice for some open country species like golden-headed manakin, spotted puffbird, KNJ, things like that. And also some nice owling locations for these in particular, we've got some good spots for. And then, if that doesn't take your fancy, then we can also go across to the estuary, to the river, and go after Guyana dolphin, which are kind of semi-endemic to the northeast coast of South America. And you've got your waders there as well if you choose not to go across to Biggie Pan. So, I mean, all in all, there just is really a wealth to see, and it's a real struggle to try and squeeze it into a short 20-minute talk. But I do hope it was interesting. And yeah, if you are interested in visiting, please do get in touch with me. As I say, we can run tailor-made trips there pretty much immediately. But if you are interested in maybe a future group tour, then yeah, I'd love to hear from you as well. And yeah, we'll be sticking around at the end to answer some questions if you do have any. But for now, I've taken up enough of your time. So we're going to have a quick, 10-minute break, and we'll be back at 8:25, where we'll hear from Jose Antonio, who's going to tell us a little bit about Bolivia. So thank you all for listening, and we will see you then. Okay, welcome back, everyone. We're now going to hear from Jose, who's going to talk to us a little bit about Bolivia. So take it away, Jose. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, George. Can you hear me okay? Yes, everyone?
Yep, you're fine.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Coming over nice and loud and clear, direct from the old capital of the Incas in Cusco, Peru.
Excellent. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for joining me this evening for this presentation in Bolivia. My name is Jose Antonio Padilla. I've been working for Naturetrek since 2011, leading trips in Peru and in Bolivia, obviously. And this afternoon here in Peru, I'm talking from Cusco. I know it's night there, evening. So hopefully you will be interested in coming to Bolivia and joining me for one of the most amazing birding trips in your life, probably. So when I first started guiding tours in Bolivia, I didn't know much about it because there were no books about Bolivian birds, and there were not many information about Bolivia and avifauna over there. But since I've been leading the tours there, I have learned more about the country and obviously, the birds in it. And now I can tell you folks that, Bolivia is such an amazing country for birds, especially. I know probably also for mammals and other wildlife, but, in this opportunity, we will talk about the main birds in the area that we go to, and the highlights as well, the habitats, and some of the places and hotels and lodges we're visiting. So Bolivia, so what we do as Naturetrek, we offer two trips, the lowlands and the highlands, right? The lowlands is a 7 days, 6 nights tour starting in Santa Cruz, right? Which is the biggest eastern city in the country. And then we have also the highlands tour that is about 10 days, 9 days. Most of the times people combine the two tours, the two trips, they do the lowlands and the highlands together. I mean, coming into Bolivia for only 1 week is not always the best thing to do, but that's why most of the times people actually do the two trips together. So if we do the two trips together, it's about, 19, 20 days, almost 3 weeks. Bolivia, as you can see, is landlocked in the middle of the continent, and it neighbors with Peru, Argentina, Chile, Paraguay, and also Brazil, right? First of all, I would like to talk about some interesting facts about Bolivia that not many people know about, no? In fact, Bolivia being in the middle of the continent and with no access to the ocean, is the richest landlocked nation in the world with bird diversity, and it has about 1,435 bird species, of which 18 species are endemic. No many endemics in Bolivia, no, like Peru, maybe Colombia, or even Brazil, which are the neighboring countries. But we have a lot of near endemic species in Bolivia, and there is a reason why. But before talking about it, I would like to give you a little bit more facts about the country. So, like, Bolivia is the sixth country which the highest number of birds in the world, and the first in the Americas, despite its lack of marine and coastal habitats, right? So, which is very interesting. In fact, people say that if Bolivia had access to the ocean and access to the, Pacific Ocean, it will be probably the country with the most species of birds in the world. It's hard to tell at the moment, obviously, because Bolivia lost its access to the ocean more than 1 century ago. But maybe, because Bolivia has all these different habitats and all these different areas where you can go to and obviously see a bunch of very nice birds. So in a 3 weeks birding trip in Bolivia, you can yield more than 700 species of birds, which is very amazing. You can only do that like in Peru or Colombia, but if you actually go to all the main habitats in Bolivia, you can even get up to 700 different species of birds, in the country, in a birding tour. In a birding tour like we do sometimes in the country. So, unlike Suriname, for example, my colleague George was talking about earlier, Bolivia is a country that also has great wildlife, of course, but the tours we do in Bolivia is mainly for birding, and for birds and birding. Although sometimes we come across a bunch of, mammals and other things in Bolivia, our most important thing to look at when we are coming to the country are actually birds. Okay, so it's really a birding trip, So Bolivia is the only country in South America that offers birding specialty of the Amazon, rainforest. Although in our tours, we don't actually go to the Amazon rainforest. We actually bird the areas nearby, and we go to other different habitats, but we don't actually go to the Amazon rainforest. We prefer going to other countries. Maybe Peru and other countries. So then you can also do a lot of birding in what we call in Spanish the yungas, which is mainly the cloud forest. No, in fact, in our tours in Bolivia, we do a lot of cloud forest tours. Even when we do the lowlands, right? We have 1 full day in Santa Cruz, where we visit a very nice, very pristine cloud forest habitat known as the Siberia in Spanish, of the Siberia in English. And the reason why they call it the Siberia is because it's very cold, very cloudy and overcast most of the time. All right. So then we also go to some little bit of Chaco and Cerrado habitats, which are basically, like savanna woodlands. We do that mainly when we do the lowlands, tour, and savanna biomass as well, all in a 3 weeks tour. As I said, I actually was talking about all the different habitats in Bolivia, although we don't actually go to all of them, but we visit most of the habitats in the country, right? Another interesting fact about Bolivia, folks, is that Bolivia is the only country that has 2 endemic species of macaws. Believe it or not, macaws, as you probably all know, are birds, members of the parrot family. They are in the Psittacidae family. And Psittacidae are found all over the world. However, macaws only are found in what we call the neotropics. That means from Central America all the way down to South America. In countries like Peru, Brazil, Bolivia, and most of the South American countries really is where we get the most species of macaws. However, it's only in Bolivia where you get 2 species of macaws endemics. One is the red-fronted macaw, right? And the other one is the blue-throated macaw. As you can see here in the picture is the one on the right, the blue-throated, very similar to the blue and yellow macaw, which is a common species of South America. But there are, in fact, as you can see, 13 species of macaws and 2 species are native and endemics to the country. And on our tours, especially in the lowland tours, we get to see the red-fronted macaws. For the blue-throated macaw, it is an extension that we go to northeast of Bolivia to a place called Trinidad, and it will take another 4 or 5 days to actually go and take and see it. We don't normally offer that, but we could do it in case somebody would like to go. But we offer as an extension, right? So with the bird and the macaw species, we always get to see on these tours are the red-fronted macaws. No, and this is something that I really like about Bolivia. Maybe the bird found in South and East of South America, right? As you can see here, this is the red-legged seriema, which is a very probably easy bird to see, like in Pantanal, Brazil, or in other countries found in southern part of the continent. We don't have it, for example, in Peru. But a lot of the species found in the South and East of South America reach the limit of the range in this area of the central eastern part of the country. So having said that, you can actually see, for example, in this map, no? And I'm gonna use, again, the red-legged seriema as an example, of what I just said. Now, the main range of the red-legged seriema, as you can see here in the map, is mainly, southeastern Brazil down to Paraguay, northeast of Argentina, a little bit of Uruguay, and also in Bolivia. And as you can see here, the range of the seriema comes all the way up to the central part of the country, in a way. So when we are doing the lowland tours, for example, we always try to get things like, the seriema or key species like the ones that are found, and they reach the limit on this part of the country. Another interesting example of what I just said is this, for example, the golden-colored tanager, a beautiful cloud forest, a mountain tanager that lives only in Peru and Bolivia, as you can see here on the map, right? And in Peru, it's found from the central Andes all the way down to southern and eastern part of the country. But in Bolivia, only found from the central part of the country to the western, the slopes of the mountains. So again, this is another bird that reached the limit of the range in Bolivia, and that is why, they are very, very nice and interesting to come to see it in the country, right? So you cannot go to Peru and Argentina, for example, on 2 different trips. You can always come to Bolivia and try to see a lot of the species found in Argentina, or at least in northwest of Argentina, and a lot of species found in southern eastern north of Peru in the country, which is very nice. I really like that a lot when I'm doing my tours here in Bolivia. Here are some of the habitats we visit when we are traveling to the country. Bolivia, like most of the countries in South America, is a country with several habitats, several different areas, what we call biomasses. And the area of our expertise on these trips are basically, in the lowlands, the savanna woodlands, and then we go up to area like Cochabamba, which has a lot of dry Bolivian mountain forests. And then as we move forward west of the country, we get over some what we call puna, habitats, which is like what in northern South America they would call paramo. But puna is much more drier, but it's in the same height. And we also get through some Bolivian cloud forests, what we call in Spanish yungas, right? So this is the area, as you can see here in the map, where we travel in the country. We start in Santa Cruz down here, and which is on the right of this area, Santa Cruz City, which is now the biggest city in the country. The country only has about 10 million of inhabitants, not many people, in fact. And Santa Cruz will have about 2.5 million inhabitants, and then La Paz and Cochabamba are the second and the third largest cities in the country. And we're going through these cities as well. We actually get to spend some time in the cities, but not much, because we always go to the birding areas, every day, and we try to get as many birds as possible, when we are doing these trips. Most of the times, we take our picnic breakfast and picnic lunch, and we spend the whole day out in the field, as I said, no, this is a very typical classic birding tour and in Bolivia. So the lowlands, as I said already, it's about 7 days, 6 nights, and we start in Santa Cruz and we go, we take what we call, or what they call in Bolivia, the old road to Cochabamba, which is a little bit southwest of the city. And we go to different areas, you know, like there is a lodge called Refugio Los Volcanes, and there's another place further called the Monte Blanco Retreat Center, etc., etc. But it's funny though, but I don't remember have seen a lot of airports in South America where birding can be so good, you know. So as soon as the people arrive in Santa Cruz Airport, usually they get about 8 o'clock in the morning. If they take British Airways, for example, or if they come from Spain, they will come into the country about 4:30 or 5 o'clock in the morning. But as soon as we get out of the airport, we start the birding. I always say to my clients, please get your binoculars ready, and keep it with you when you leave the airport, because as soon as we leave the airport and we start the birding, look at the nice habitat, that is found around Santa Cruz Airport, and which have been registered about 268 species of birds all over. So it just birding out at the airport, we can get things like great rhea, red-winged cinnamon, white-bellied notura, which is this guy down here with the yellow legs, and these guys, although they are not the easiest to see, but they're pretty much very easy to get them out there in the around the airport. Another specialties also that are quite easy to get around the airport could be Guira cuckoo, which is a member of the cuckoo family, related to, some people say related to hoaxins in the Amazon rainforest. Campo flicker, a big woodpecker that is found also around the airport. I know a couple of areas where we look for, and we've actually seen it very, very easy. And white woodpecker. White woodpecker, which is more of a Brazilian bird that can be also found just around Santa Cruz Airport in a very easy way. It's also very nice. Choppy blackbird, which is all over, making a lot of noise, and also the grassland sparrow, which is a bird very much found just in grasslands area and savanna habitats. So is the Chotoi spinetail, which is another good example of what I told you before. One of the species of birds, very common in the southern part of Brazil, maybe Argentina, but in Bolivia, they reach to the limit of the range, and it's around Santa Cruz Airport and also another place called Lomas de Arena, the only two places where we can actually see them in our lowland trips, Then we got things like Bolivian Slady anstra, which is near endemic to Bolivia, and another lowland species like Fombres wrens and flavescent warbler as well are only found in this part of the country, As I said before, this is mainly a birding trip. However, sometimes we get things, we got some mammals like crab-eating fox, for example, coming in, and also this is a brown-throated three-toed sloth that we can see, especially in an area known as the Botanical Gardens, which is in Santa Cruz City, which is also another place that we go usually early in the morning to look at birds. And sometimes we get things like this, mammals, which is also very interesting to see. Things like Bolivian silver-eared titi monkeys are also there, and the silver-tailed little marmoset monkeys can be also found in this area. Then we go to this fantastic eco lodge, which is called Refugio Los Volcanes. As you can see here, I make a circle where you can see the lodge down here, and it's surrounded by these beautiful, beautiful chain mountains. And it's like a hole in the middle of the Andes, and it's found there. It's about 1,000 meters in elevation, right? And we get there in about 2.5 hours from the city of Santa Cruz. And we get to spend a couple nights. And as you can see, it's surrounded by a fantastic forest, and it's in the farther southern part of one big national park in Bolivia that is called Amborón National Park. It's not very far from the national park. And as you can see, here is the nice view of the lodge that we can all see, because the car would bring us to a lookout point where we can see this beautiful place from above. And then we go down. In about 20 minutes, we get down to the lodge. And here you can see some of the facilities, the rooms and the view from down there, at this fantastic lodge. The food is here very nice. Early in the morning, you get to spend, you get to have your breakfast overlooking a very nice stream or creek that is down there with a bunch of birds coming to some of the feeders they put there. And if we are lucky, sometimes the guys there, they decided to make some nice local made pizza or homemade pizzas as well. And we can all have pizzas there for supper or dinner. These are some of the nice birds we can see there, like the Jungas Manakin, Plush-crested jay. None of these are endemics, but are highly localized around this area. Black cap rain, Bolivian recurve, almost endemic to Bolivia, found also in a tiny little bit of Peru, can be also seen around this place. Refugio Los Volcanes. If we're lucky in a sunny day, we get things like Andean condor. Military macaws come to the lodge at some time of the year, seasonal. And Toko toucan as well can be seen flying over or sometimes perched in the trees by the lodge. Another place we stayed at, especially in the lowlands, is this area known as Monte Blanco, which is a spiritual retreat center. It's like 3 hours from the city of Santa Cruz, almost 300 kilometers. A little bit more than 300 kilometers, and this old road to Cochabamba, as I already said before. And this place is also very nice. It's not really an eco lodge, it's not really a hotel, but we get to spend the nights, 3 nights in here because it's in a very good location. We have a special deal with the owners and the management of this place that allowed us to stay there for 3 nights. And as you can see, it's like an old style sort of cottage, English cottage. And it's very quiet, very nice. Sometimes though, they're like a bunch of teenagers or young girls coming to this place, but they stay a bit far from the cabins we use. So we don't actually get bothered by them at all. And the habitats around this retreat center I was just talking about, it's very dry habitat, with some dry mountains around. And this is the main habitat for one of the most spectacular birds in Bolivia, and a bunch of endemics like red-fronted macaw, on the left here on the screen, the newly described species of parakeet called cliff parakeet, which is like a split from the monk parakeet, but you can see it's completely different. Bolivia blackbird is another endemic found also around, and Bolivian earth creeper, that you can see down here, is also found around this area known as Comarapa. All right. We also have excellent, very nice birds like a great walk-tailed tyrant here on the left, a spot-back puffbird, and this scissor-tailed Tanager that is very easy to see around this area, especially at night. Then we go to the highlands, which is about 10 days, nights. And from the highlands, we go from Cochabamba to La Paz, making one night stop in Oruro, And here we can get, things like this fantastic, critically endangered bird called Cochabamba mountain finch. They live in a very little area close to what we call quenuales or polylepis trees, right, in Cochabamba. And we've been very lucky to see them almost every time. So it's obviously the population is decreasing because of the deforestation and the cutting of the trees around, but we also have a very good chance to get the Cochabamba mountain finch. And also in the same area, we got things like wedge-tailed hillstar, almost endemic to Bolivia. It's also found in Argentina. Maquis canastero, again near endemic, and this new Rufous belly mountain tanager. It used to be called Rufous belly saltator before, but the English name has just recently changed to mountain tanager. All these 3 species were quite easy to see, including the Cochabamba mountain finch in this part of the country. Then we also go to some cloud forest areas, what we call yungas, and we get things like green-throated tanager, which is highly localized in Bolivia, and some little spots in Peru. Torrent ducks as well can be seen quite easy, especially in the rivers there. white-eared solitary, only found in southeastern Peru and also in Bolivia. No, the Bantel fruit eater, also around the near endemic hooded mountain toucan, hooded mountain toucan. You know, a lot of the clients I have guided over these 10 years, this is the last toucan they need to see, and they come to Bolivia actually to get it. No, versicolor barbet is another nice, almost endemic species of bird in Bolivia and in Peru. Another bird, including, you know, Andean cock of the rock, plush cup, orange brow hemispingus, light crown spinetail as well, are easy to see in the cloud forest of Cochabamba. One day we go out birding in a place called with a big lake just in the middle of the city of Cochabamba called Laguna Alalay. And here we get things like hanging abocets, again, not only found in southeastern Peru and in Bolivia. No, rosy-billed pochard, no, can be seen in this lake. Red shoveler, you know, I've seen sometimes there, and the red-fronted coot, no, can be confused sometimes with the common gallinal, no, but there are certain features and field marks you have to look at to actually ID the birds. Then we have this almost also very endangered species called Titicaca grebe, that we get it in Titicaca Lake, but there are also a couple other locations that I know that we can also get it. You know, only live around. There's less than 1,000 individuals left in the world, unfortunately, due to the, you know, heavy fishing activities on the Lake Titicaca. That can be also seen. The 3 species of South American flamingos are found in Bolivia, like Chilean flamengo, Andean flamengo, and also James flamengo are found around here, especially in the highland trip. And then finally, we go to the city of La Paz. Now, La Paz is a very nice city located like in a big, huge, and very deep valley, right? And that you can actually see from up above in some lookout points, and as you're coming in. So La Paz, although it's not the capital of Bolivia, the capital of Bolivia is Sucre. La Paz is the place where the president lives, and also the other politicians also live around. Now, in La Paz, there's a very nice cloud forest as well that we go to, including, you know, this very the very famous road called the Death Road, no, which is now used a lot by mountain bikers, but we also go there to do a lot of birding, which is here on the right of the screen. And on the way there, we get to pass some beautiful snow-capped mountains, some beautiful Andean lakes, and obviously the Yungas habitat or the cloud forest are amazing, no? And around La Paz, we are going to try to get things like rufous belly sea snipe, great-breasted sea snipe as well, that are quite easy to get, you know, giant coots, the endemic black-hooded sunbeam as well, and another endemic, a very rare canastero called Birch's calastero, is also in the tour. No, here are some endemic species of Bolivia that we always get on our highland tours. Then one day we will go to Lake Titicaca, no, and we get passed by. In fact, we're having lunch in one of the restaurants by the lake, right? And you know, Lake Titicaca is the highest navigable lake in the world. No, it's very nice, it's fantastic, and it's only shared by Peru and Bolivia. Obviously, we go to the Bolivian side, no? And in La Paz, we stayed at this nice hotel called Rosario Hotel, which is a 3.5, no, 3.5 star hotel in a very nice neighborhood, close to a lot of handicraft markets and a lot of areas where you can have also a little bit of shopping if you want, no? And this is the place and the hotel we stayed at. Very nice, no? Especially for the end of the tour. Very nice and comfortable. And here is some of the books that I recommend for coming to Bolivia. This is just to finish. I know I go over the time, sorry folks. Well, Birds to Bolivia, which is a new book recently released, I think a couple of years before the pandemic, right? That can be found only in Bolivia, unfortunately, at the moment. If you want to get the book, you have to contact Naturetrek, and then together we get the book for you, and you get it when you get to the country. Then you also can get other birds as well for birding in Bolivia, like Southern American passerines, birds of Brazil, especially the one of Pantanal and Cerrado. You know, the aves or the birds of Argentina, Uruguay, birds of South America is also very good. That you can get. Birds of Peru, of course, being so close to the country. A lot of the species found in southern eastern Peru are also found in Bolivia. And this old book, very, very good. If you can get it, also highly recommended. Birds of the High Andes, which, you know, talks a lot of the high Andean birds, including teals and, you know, ducks and all the stuff. Anyway, so thank you very much, everyone. Hope you didn't get too bored, to get bored with my lecture, and I hope to see you soon in Bolivia. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed it. Andy? Oh,
Thank you
hello,
very
Paul.
Yeah, thank
Hi,
you.
Paul.
Thank you,
Yes,
Jose.
thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, if you can unshare your screen, then I'll pop my talk on. Right, excellent. Thank you very much. So just 1 second, folks. Okay, almost. Right, hopefully that's all working. So yeah, thank you very much, Jose. It sounds like Bolivia sounds like an amazing country. So for our last session this evening, I'm going to take you through travel from one of the smaller countries in South America, Bolivia, to one of the largest, to Argentina. And I'm going to take you on a tour from north to south and show you some of the landscapes and wildlife highlights of this very spectacular country. So Argentina, as I mentioned, one of the largest countries in South America, measures 3,700 kilometers from north to south. So that's the equivalent of sort of Shetland down to the Canary Islands, if you wanted to stretch out the United Kingdom to the same length as Argentina. And it's from its widest point, it's over 1,400 kilometers from west to east. And few countries can really boast such a variety of topography and wonderful diversity of habitats and spectacular wildlife as well. So we fly into Buenos Aires, the capital of Argentina. BA used to fly direct, but now they stop over briefly in Rio de Janeiro en route. But we try to use BA where possible. If not, then you can fly with Iberia via Madrid, or Lufthansa via Frankfurt. So there are quite a few options to take you to Buenos Aires. And say it's a very varied country. Some of the highlights of Argentina include the Grasic Falls right up in the north of the country. You have Ushuaia right down in the south, and Peninsula Valdez is a fantastic area for wildlife, and Los Glaciares National Park, some of the most spectacular landscapes in the whole of the country, and in Salta and the Andes, not actually that far from the Paz in Bolivia that Jose was showing you earlier. So in Argentina, the habitats have been such a huge country, with such a it has a wide range of habitats, from tropical up in the north to subantarctic down in the south, and from sea level to the dizzying heights of the Andes. A very varied country with lots to enjoy. We fly into, as mentioned, into Buenos Aires, and the capital of Argentina, well, it's a very interesting city historically and culturally. There's also some great wildlife and some birding to be done on the edge of Buenos Aires at Costanera Sur. This is one of the most exciting urban reserves in the whole of South America. It's a remnant of the extensive marshes that used to stretch along the length of the Plata River. And it's a great place to unwind after your long flight and to enjoy some of your first South American birds. You should see Guira cuckoo pretty easily at Costanera Sur. They're often hopping along the wall, along the edge of the promenade that edges the nature reserve. The common bird of the area also is the Rufous hornero, a song thrush-sized brown bird that runs around on the ground. It's actually Argentina's national bird, also known as the ovenbird. It's building this mud nest. But in particular, Costanera Sur excels for its water birds. There are plenty of silver teal out on the lakes. There are southern screamers, quite common here as well. Limpkins, a variety of herons. Beautiful great grebe, the largest of the world's grebes, is frequently seen here. Along with white-winged and red-gartered coot. There are snail kites. There's a whole plethora of different birds to enjoy. One of the key species to find, not an easy bird, but certainly worth looking for, is the spectacular many-coloured rush tyrant, which has to have the accolade of being the world's most spectacular member of the flycatcher family. They live around the edges of the reed beds at the reserve, and if we're lucky, hopefully we'll spot one. But after all of our tours start with a night in Buenos Aires, and then we head out from Buenos Aires to explore some of the other areas of the country. At the moment, our two main tours to Argentina is a trip that encompasses the Andes Mountains and Iguazu Falls, and we have another down further south in the country, Argentine Patagonia, that explores Peninsula Valdez, Glaciares National Park, and Ushuaia. I'm going to now show you just some of the wildlife and scenic highlights of those regions. So from Buenos Aires, you can fly across to the town of Salta, up in the lies at the foot of the Andes in the northwestern corner of Argentina. I'd say not that far as the Condor flies from La Paz and those mountains, the Andes Mountains up in Bolivia that Jose was showing us earlier. And it sits at an altitude of around 4,000 feet and offers easy access to the Andes Mountains and access right up into the high tops of the Andes. You can climb up to 16,000 or more feet from Salta and pass through a range of habitats en route from the cloud forests of the Yungas to the dizzying heights of the Puna and the Altiplano. So, as well as the wildlife, the landscapes here are absolutely spectacular. And from Salta, we'll start the climb up into the Andes, starting with time to explore the Yungas cloud forest. This is a moss-draped forest. It's a damp, wet area, and home to Sayaka Tanager, buff-browed foliage gleaner, brown-capped redstar, Bridges guan, and a wide variety of other birds. From the Yungas, we can climb higher up into the Andes. As you climb higher, you start to enter the rain shadow. Less water around, vegetation changes. Again, it's wonderful scenery as you climb up into the mountains. There are burrowing parrots, common at a sort of mid elevation. We'll be searching the fast-flowing streams and rivers for the beautiful torrent duck, the male here on the right with the black and white face, and the female on the left with the rufusy breast and face. One of the key birds to find on this trip. And I say as we climb in altitude, the habitat changes. It's drier. At mid-elevation, you have the mid-elevation cactus forest of Los Cardones National Park, home to a variety of other species, including the giant hummingbird, the largest of the hummingbird species, which is best looked for around flowering tobacco bushes. Overhead, Andean condors soar, and we'll be looking out as well for a woodpecker in a habitat that's pretty much devoid of wood. And this is the Andean flicker. Has more of a habit of our green woodpecker and hops around on the ground looking for ants and other insects. There are a few hummingbirds up here, including the beautiful red-tailed comet with its long iridescent copper-coloured tail. And as we continue to climb higher, the habitats continue to dry out and get further and further deeper into the rain shadow. The landscapes get more spectacular. As well as the birds, there are some mammals to enjoy as well. The guanaco is common at the lower and mid altitudes, and we should see the vicuña as well, the more graceful relative of the guanaco. And so from Salta at 4,000 feet, we can climb up and beyond 16,000 feet high at the Altiplano. This is the Abra del Aque Pass at 16,200 feet. The air is quite thin up here. You have to take it easy, but the views are spectacular and some interesting wildlife to enjoy as well, including the mountain viscacha, a cross between a rabbit and a kangaroo. Some interesting birds up here. Grey-bellied seed snipe. It's quite commonly seen. If you're very lucky, if you search the damper, wetter bogs areas, then you may even see diadem sandpiper plover, one of the most sought after waders in the whole of South America. Another of the beautiful waders of the region is the tawny-throated dotterel, which also lives on high altiplano steppe grasslands. And then we can get up as high as Lake Pozuelos, which sits on the altiplano surrounded by spectacular mountains. And here we'll be looking for Puna flamingo, also called James's flamingo, as well as a wide variety of waders and other species as well. Sorry. So that gives, so you can climb up to 60,000 feet and then we'll gradually make our way back down again. And on the Andes to Iguazu tour, we fly across to Iguazu. I'll show you some slides of Iguazu a little bit later. But moving south from the Andes, we move south to another key wildlife hotspot in Argentina, which is Peninsula Valdez. And we include the peninsula on our Argentine Patagonia tour. And we go here not only, mostly primarily for the mammals, actually, as well as a few birds. The key species to see is the southern right whale, and they gather here between July and November, and they gather here to the sheltered waters of the bays around the Peninsula Valdez to mate and give birth. And over 1,000 whales gather here every year, and then they head south into Antarctica between from November, December through the austral summer to feed down in Antarctica before moving back up again into this region to mate and give birth. They're very easy to see around Peninsula Valdez, and we'll take out a boat trip to look for it. So they are mostly around the Golfo Nuevo and the surrounding area of there. But we fly into Trelew on that part of the trip. And then we move down also to Punta Tombo, one of the largest Magellanic penguin colonies in the whole of South America, with over 200,000 pairs. It's really very impressive place, very noisy, very vibrant place to visit. There are elephant seals along the coastline of Peninsula Valdez. This is the most northerly population of southern elephant seals anywhere in the world. And we all know now about the killer whales that patrol the beaches here in the hope of snatching an unfortunate elephant seal pup. Although it's actually very difficult to see that spectacular spectacular occurrence, and you really have to be in the right place at the right time to see that. But orcas are quite often seen patrolling along the beach line. And there are plenty of other birds and other wildlife to see here as well, including burrowing owl, which is quite a widespread bird in the drier areas of Argentina. And for Peninsular Valdez, we head further south to Los Glaciares National Park in the southern Andes, and down to where the Andes pretty much disappear into the Southern Ocean down at Ushuaia. So at Los Glaciares National Park, we're visiting really to not only to enjoy the wildlife, but also to enjoy the spectacular scenery of this particular area. And we're meeting up with the Andes Mountains once again. Here they're edged with the Nothofagus forest, the southern beach, home to some interesting birds such as horn-tailed rayadito, Austral blackbird, Chilean flicker, and an Austral pygmy owl. And here we're looking at some of the most spectacular mountains in the range, in particular Mount Fitzroy. We'll also visit the spectacular Moreno Glacier. There are 12 glaciers altogether in Los Glaciares National Park, but the Moreno is without doubt the most spectacular of those, with a wall of ice over 70 meters high. Once again, we'll be looking out for Andean condors patrolling the skies here. But if there is a dead cow in a ranch, you might be lucky enough to see up to 30 of these spectacular birds down scavenging. In other areas, we'll be looking for other birds such as the lesser rhea, and on the lakes we should see the beautiful black-necked swan. Long-tailed meadowlark, another bird to look out for, again quite widespread in much of Argentina. If you're doing a tailor-made tour, we can do tailor-made trips to Argentina as well as the group tours I mentioned. If you're doing a tailor-made trip, you can nip over the border into Chile to Torres del Paine National Park, one of the most famous parks in the whole of South America, and only a stone's throw from Los Glaciares. And as well as enjoying the spectacular landscapes and the mountain range here, this is the place to go if you want to track pumas and look for pumas. And you stand unlucky, in fact, not to see puma. If you go to the right place in Torres del Paine, you need to have a puma tracker, but the animals that are now habituated to people, you stand a very good chance of seeing. But this is pretty much the only place in the world where you have a very good chance of seeing this spectacular big cat. Then from Los Glaciares, we move further south still to the city of Ushuaia, which is the southernmost city of touted as the southernmost city in the world. It's not really big. It's not a big city. It's pretty much just a small town and very easy to explore. But it sits right on the edge of the Beagle Channel, with the mountains of the Andes behind, and it offers some pretty much sub-Antarctic habitats to enjoy, and a different range of wildlife too. So we've got dolphin gull here, one of the most beautiful gulls in the region. The lovely kelp goose, flightless steamer duck, and you'll also probably see its flying cousin. We'll do a boat trip out onto the Beagle Channel. You should see black-browed albatross, as well as southern giant petrel, Magellanic diving petrel, Magellanic penguin. We'll take a trip into the Tierra del Fuego National Park, again to look at the landscape, but also do some bird watching. And this is a great place to look for Magellanic woodpecker, one of the largest woodpeckers in South America. Then we end, or a great place to end after you've been to Argentina and explored some of the other regions, is to spend a few days up at the Iguazu Falls. So from the southernmost point of Argentina in Ushuaia, you're going to end up in the Iguazu Falls, which is nearly Argentina's most northerly point. And the Iguazu is up near the border of Brazil, Argentina, and Paraguay. One of the most spectacular natural wonders of the world. There are 275 different cascades from waterfalls here, and this is the biggest of them, the so-called Devil's Throat, where over 2 million litres of water pour over this cascade every second. Over the tops of the waterfall, you'll see wheeling flocks of great dusky swifts. These are the birds that dive behind the water to nest. The ones we see on all the David Attenborough programs, flying through the curtains of water to their nesting sites. In the tropical forests, and now we're back into the hot, humid tropical forests here. It's not. I would recommend a visit to Iguazu, not just for the waterfall itself, but the birding around the falls is spectacular. We'll arrange a guide for you to take you into the park first thing in the morning before the crowds of visitors arrive, and you should see Toko Toucan without any problem. The beautiful blonde crested woodpecker, hopefully a swallow-tailed manakin. And then a short distance away from the falls, there's a hummingbird garden where there are hummingbird feeders set out. And here you'll get to see a wonderful, dazzling variety of different hummingbirds, including the swallow-tailed hummingbird here, one of the loveliest of the family. And as well as the birds, of course, there's lots of other wildlife to explore and to enjoy. Plenty of really interesting butterflies and insects, and some mammals too. The South American coati here is commonly seen around the falls, and very often around the picnic area, as these animals do scavenging on scraps from the tourists. So it's a great place really to finish a holiday. A nice mix of spectacular scenery with the falls and some wonderful wildlife as well. So I'll end there and say thank you very much for listening. Argentina really is a very spectacular country. It's one of those places you certainly can't do in one trip, certainly recommend time there. So thank you very much, and I'll end there. And if you have any questions, then please do let us know. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul. If you could stop sharing your screen, great. Thank you again, all of you joining us this evening. I've asked the guys to keep their time free up until about 9:30 here in the UK. It's another quarter of an hour or so. And with almost 150 of you still on with us, we've got 15 minutes or so to just chat through the questions which have come up. So thank you guys for 4 excellent talks there. Like I said at the start, I was looking forward to a bit of a tonic and get my mind away from this dreary British weather, and you certainly gave that, so thanks very much. Let's take the destinations in the order you spoke. First of all, Rob, the question always comes up, and I never tire of hearing about it because I like the opportunity to give people some reassurance and peace of mind. Security in Colombia, it's your home now. We've never had an issue there as a tour operator. Sum up your attitude to risk in a nutshell.
I think a good starting point is to visit the FCO advisory for Colombia. Colombia is a huge country, and as soon as you go on the FCO advisory, you'll realize that a huge swathe of the country is covered in green, which is essentially a green light for travel. Obviously, there's always risk with travel, but nevertheless, the FCO advisory have a huge part of the country in green, and those are the parts of the country that we operate our tours in. We've, as you say, Andy, we've never had any problems. There are certain parts of Colombia that are not recommended to visit, and we stay well away from those areas. And I would say, obviously, Colombia has there is a kind of stigma, preconceived ideas. But everyone that comes here leaves having had an incredible experience with meeting locals. Colombians are some of the friendliest people in the world. I love living out here. Just wonderful people, and And yeah, we obviously, we are aware of very aware of those areas that are off limits, and we don't go anywhere near them.
Right, yeah, as a tour operator, our top priority is, of course, people's safety and security. With things kicking off in Ecuador today, tensions rising, it's all over the news. I've got a keen eye on developments there. But we've got great local teams in Colombia. Rob and his partner, Claudia, his business partner, front up operations for us there. We've got great teams in Ecuador and surrounding countries as well. So I've got full trust in our local teams, and safety and security is always a #1 priority. Rob, just quickly, altitude. This question's come up for all 3 countries, apart from Suriname, the other 3 countries. How high do we go? Is altitude sickness a risk? I think Nevada de Ruiz, about 4,000 meters, is the highest we go.
Hello.
Yeah, exactly. It's really important when it comes to altitude to acclimatize. So we start our tour off at 1,500 meters, and we take steps up as we go. As you say, we get up to 4,000 meters, but we don't sleep up there. So we go up high birding for those high altitude species, and then we come back down to the lodge. But by that time, we're well acclimatized. And then after that, we're kind of stepping back down as the itinerary continues. We've never had, you get some minor headaches and things. Everyone reacts differently to altitude. And obviously we take every precaution. If there were a problem, the solution is to descend immediately. We've never had a problem on any of those tours because they're structured, as I say, in a way that the group is well acclimatized by the time we get up to those high altitudes.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's the same for all the other tours.
Yeah. Thanks, Rob. George, I loved your talks. I knew very little about Suriname before this evening, other than you went on holiday there last year. And I'll just tell the people watching that I love it when our staff at Naturetrek invest some of their annual leave in researching and visiting countries with wildlife potential. It's great to see that passion and enthusiasm. And we gave George a little bit of a challenge when he came back to the office last year. We said, if you manage to sell a holiday to Suriname, Naturetrek will retrospectively pay for your flights. So that's why George is so passionate tonight. He's hoping to secure a sale or two. But joking aside, George, that came across really well. Kind of an undeveloped country with bags of potential, a really rich natural heritage, some good conservation initiatives, a lack of deforestation. And I've got high hopes now. I think all the positive comments tonight, you've got a bucket load of people who can't wait to go. What was your highlight there when you went?
Oh, what a question. One highlight. For me, as some of you might know as well, I also went to Gabon, which is also a very highly forested country. And one of my favorite things about being in those kind of environments is, the transfers between locations. I love just not being able to switch off. I mean, like the roadside birding, just not knowing what's going to run in front of you whenever you're driving between these places is a kind of a quirky highlight. For instance, when we landed at the airport, my guide told me that there was a harpy eagle nest between us and the capital city that had been there just a few months before. They'd had jaguars crossing the highway. So it's just really exciting. It's all go. I guess my particular highlight was actually when we were out on that river. And we had those in our first hour, we had a giant family of giant otters, which was the closest I've ever encountered them. I've seen them in the Pantanal as well, but this was, just a really special encounter. There were just no boats around us at all. The river was, completely flat. And these, inquisitive family would just come right up to us. And this is 5 minutes after seeing 5 manatees and 3 species of primate and the toucans. Yeah, it was spectacular. It really was. So it was a very good trip.
Great. Carol Hudson, thanks for your question. Just popped up. George, did you have any problem charging camera batteries during your trip? I guess Carol's talking there about access to electricity points, etc.
No, I didn't. No, I was fully charged the whole way. I did, because some of the places that I visited were a little bit more remote than perhaps I'd recommend, is particularly if we were going to put together a group tour. I tend to travel with quite a large portable battery pack, which isn't necessarily for cameras, but you can, if your camera does have USB charging capabilities, they are really invaluable to take with you. There is power. Actually, everywhere we went was mains powered. There were no generators. So yeah, you can certainly charge cameras. It's sometimes a case of, there's only one plug per room, but if you're not sharing a room with other people, that's absolutely fine. So yeah, there shouldn't be a problem charging cameras or anything like that. And if you're, thinking about battery powered things, Suriname's kind of laid out in a way that you have to pass through Paramaribo quite a lot. So we can always run to the shop and pick up batteries as well. So yeah, it shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, great, Jules. Thanks. Well, one of the beauties of doing these sessions from our point of view is you very quickly gauge feedback and enthusiasm for certain destinations. So thank you for your comments and questions this evening. Jose, on to Bolivia from you. You're Peruvian. Of course, Bolivia is a neighboring country. Those communities in the Andes are tight-knit. Bolivia, especially up in the Andes, is not known as a tourism destination, but I thought you gave a really good idea of some of those comfortable lodges you stay at, especially Los Volcanes, the situation there, surrounded by those rocky formations. It's quite spectacular, isn't it? So some great birding to be had there. How do you feel as a Peruvian guiding in Bolivia? Is that a tour you always enjoy?
Yes, Andy, indeed. I remember the first time I was offered to go to Bolivia. The guy who told me was, you go to Bolivia, especially in the highlands, you will see almost all the birds that are found in southern eastern Peru. No, and it's true because we share a lot of the habitats, in southern eastern Peru and northwest of Bolivia. So, except for the endemics, of course. One thing that I like about Bolivia is that because it's not, like you say, a great birding destination. A lot of the areas you go are very unspoiled, and whatever you do, for example, a little bit of playback to the birds or a little bit of the recording, the birds will come right away. No things, something that is not happening like in some areas in Peru anymore. I guess in some of the big great birding destinations, but that is what I really enjoyed in Bolivia. So it's very good in that way. So especially talking about Los Volcanes is a nice place. It's like being so isolated from the rest of the country and surrounded by that. Just every morning you wake up, you look at the mountains and you think you're in paradise, really. So it's really a nice place to be at. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very
The one
nice.
other comment I want to make on Bolivia is the two tours you've talked about, what I call kind of birders itineraries. It's kind of birds. Unless you're a keen birder, you're not really going to enjoy those two itineraries. So if you are a keen birder, I really recommend you look up those two tours that Jose Antonio leads. But there's been a couple of comments tonight. One person asked us about mammal potential in Bolivia. And I also just want to mention another project we've got underway, which is to create a kind of a best of Bolivia tour, which visited some of the best birding sites, but also brings to the fore some of Bolivia's rich human history and culture. Bolivia is full of ruins and museums and ancient artifacts, and a lot of our clients, although they're keen on birds, sometimes you're bringing a kind of a non-birding spouse or partner who isn't so interested in the birds. And so what we've done in Colombia very successfully with Rob on our Birds and History tour is create a really comfortable 2-week itinerary with plenty of birding, but also focus on peripheral interests, be it coffee tasting or chocolate making or a fantastic local museum or art gallery. And that's really what we want to do in Bolivia with you, Jose. And with the mammals, the Chaco in eastern Bolivia has great potential for mammal spotting. Jaguars can be seen there. But what I said when I answered that comment in the question is that there's very little infrastructure. So we're looking into that at the moment. I think that will come to the fore in the next 5 years or so, and eastern Bolivia and the mammal potential will open up there. You've led that Birds and History tour, Rob, and I think it's a question we sometimes get. I want to come on a birding tour, but my other half isn't such a keen birder. What does Naturetrek offer? That Birds and History tour in Colombia, you've led it just recently. What kind of people do you get on that tour, and how does it unfold?
I would say people that are keen on birds, but with with other interests, I suppose. We spend time in Bogota. We go to the Gold Museum there, which is a spectacular museum. We visit Cartagena at the end of the tour, which has an fascinating history. And as you say, we do some coffee tours and we visit, we just enjoy the culinary experience here in Colombia as well, amongst lots of great birding. Visiting some of the locations that I mentioned in my talk, in the Central Andes in particular. And yeah, we run 2 tours this in November and December, and both were really successful. So yeah, I think it's a great tour. I think it's worth mentioning there was a comment earlier, can you see butterflies on the Multicoloured Tanager tour? And I think it's worth mentioning that tour is kind of unashamedly bird focused, as is the case with the Santa Marta Endemics tour and the Magdalena Valley birding tour as well, the Eastern Andes and Magdalena Valley. So the Birds in History is a bit more diverse. And I know, we need to get onto our Birds and Mammals tour as well. And we also have Go Slow birding in the pipeline as well, which is a single-centered birding holiday for people that don't want to move around, because invariably here in Colombia, with such diversity spread out through the country, we're hopping around on these birding tours, 1 night, 2 nights, 3 nights at the very most. So that Go Slow birding tour, I think, could be interesting as well, where we just stay in one location for 7 nights and we bird various reserves, and that's going to be based out of Manizales, which I mentioned on the talk.
Yeah, that'll be launched in our February newsletter, so look out for that. I look forward to working on that with you, Rob. Paul, last but not least, Argentina, arguably a country slightly overlooked from the British wildlife travellers' point of view. Such a large country, great diversity. Some of your shots of the scenery there were absolutely stunning. I watched on Netflix last night The Society of the Snow, which covered the famous plane crash in 1972 up in the Argentinian Andes on the Colombian border with the stranded Uruguayan rugby team. But your slides gave a different perspective to that raw scenery down there in Argentina. Do you think it's got more potential? Should more British wildlife travellers consider it as a destination, do you think?
Oh, definitely, yes. And I've visited the Andes around Salto, Iguazu, and down to Ushuaia, and every area, the whole country is just full of wonderful wildlife and spectacular landscapes. I'm certainly planning on putting together some more itineraries for Argentina over the coming months. At the moment, we just do a trip up in the north, one down in the south. We also have a birding, short 10-day birding trip that focuses as well on the Andes Mountains. But there's lots of other areas at the moment that we don't include. The Ibera Marshes up in the north of the country. There's just lots of other areas that we'll also include. So yeah, it's a very varied country, lots to see, and plenty of potential for new tours in the future.
Yeah, that's great, Paul. Thanks very much. Well, it's clicked around to 9:30, so I'd like to thank you all for joining us, especially you 4 speakers. Thank you for your time. Those of you listening, if you have any questions that you wish you would have asked and haven't, or we've skipped over a question, please contact us in the Naturetrek office in the coming days. We'll be pleased to have a chat with you on the telephone or correspond on email. It's been great to have you all with us this evening. I've really enjoyed another look at South America with some destinations we haven't covered before. So enjoy the rest of the evening or afternoon if you're somewhere else in the world like Rob and Jose Antonio are, and we'll be in touch soon. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Thank you, folks.